Washington's growing use of its maritime strength, its maritime power to enforce US sanctions. Then this again was a pre-dawn operation. That's the information that's coming in. US Marines and sailors operating under the Joint Task Force Southern Spear. They were launched from on board the USS Gerald R. Ford, the US Navy aircraft carrier battle group, and they've apprehended one oil tanker, Olena. Of course, this was without an incident. This was in coordination with the Department of Homeland Security. We are told that the US is now tightening the screws. It's tightening the enforcement on global energy routes. Questions are being raised about 1. Unilateral actions, 2. Supply chain risks and the message that is being sent out to energy importing countries. And this is happening at a time when New Delhi has clearly said that energy security and national interests will guide our decisions. I quickly want to bring in my colleague Rohit Sharma joining us live from Washington, D.C. Rohit, what more details do we have? What flag was this tanker? Where was the tanker going? Where was it intercepted?
So this, early this morning, the United States, overnight, I should say, seized another tanker. And this is, again, to try and control the flow of oil to and from Venezuela. The tanker name, the motor, is known as the Olena, and it was seized in the Caribbean Sea. An operation, as you said, was conducted by the Coast Guard and the Joint Task Force of the Southern Spear. And this Olena, again, was a sanctioned vessel, a sanctioned tanker, something the U.S. called as a ghost fleet tanker, suspected of carrying embargoed oil. Interestingly, Olena has also visited 3 Indian ports before it was sanctioned. We're still trying to get to understand if it made those trips to India, but it definitely visited India thrice. It went to Jamnagar, where is Reliance refineries. It went to Kochi, where we got the Indian oil refineries, and another port in India. So this was, again, seized by the U.S. because U.S. believes that this was carrying embargoed oil.
Okay.
They were tracking this. It was sanctioned by the U.S. and the G7 countries. And overnight, early this morning, I should say, the U.S. seized it in the Caribbean Sea.
Keep tracking that story. I will come back to you for more as we await the US Supreme Court decision on Trump tariffs, but it's also D-Day for US President Donald Trump's tariff playbook, because moments from now, the Supreme Court is set to rule on the legality of his actions, and that will have massive international, global consequences. And this comes just a day after President Trump cleared the Russia sanctions bill that could actually slap up to 500% tariffs on countries that continue to buy Russia oil, India included. And this raises the stakes of the India-US trade talks that are still happening or remain in limbo. New Delhi hasn't blinked, clearly not, even as Washington, D.C. continues to send mixed signals. Remember, Donald Trump had claimed that the Prime Minister is angry with him, and the Prime Minister, then one day he said the Prime Minister called him and said, "Sir," or words to that effect. India's message has been very consistent. When Howard Lutnick, the US Commerce Secretary, said that Prime Minister Narendra Modi was meant to call President Trump and he didn't, well, the MEA called the US characterization of events as inaccurate, stressing that talks have been held and India remains open. India remains in dialogue, but only for a fair and balanced deal. Bottom line, tariff pressure or ego politics, New Delhi will not buckle under pressure.
मेरी सरकार किसानों का कभी भी अहित नहीं होने देंगी.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's pledge to protect farmers' interests.
Prime Minister Modi came to see me. "Sir, may I see you, please?" Yes, I have a very good relationship with him. He's not that happy with me because, they're paying a lot of tariffs now.
President Donald Trump's claims on approach by the Indian Prime Minister.
I said, you got to have Modi. It's all set up. You have to have Modi call the president. And they were uncomfortable doing it. So Modi didn't call.
And his own Commerce Secretary fact-checking him. America is passing the buck on trade deal and is now making it about ego. President Trump just a few days back claimed that Prime Minister Modi sought time from him for a meet.
India ordered 68 Apaches, and Prime Minister Modi came to see me. Sir, may I see you, please? Yes, I have a very good relationship with him. He's not that happy with me because, they're paying a lot of tariffs now because they're not doing the oil, but they are. They've now reduced it very substantially, as you know, from Russia.
His own aide has now contradicted Trump's claims. US Commerce Secretary claimed that the trade deal fell through as Prime Minister Modi did not call US President.
Sheet the contracts and set the whole deal up. But let's be clear. It's his deal.
Yeah.
Okay? He's the closer. He does the deal. So I said, you got to have Modi. It's all set up. You have to have Modi call the president. And they were uncomfortable doing it. So Modi didn't call.
Amid mixed signals from US, India remains firm. MEA calling the characterization as inaccurate, saying India and US held several talks, came close to a deal.
India and the United States were committed to negotiating a bilateral trade agreement with the US. The characterization of these discussions in the reported remarks is not accurate.
The Narendra Modi government has always maintained a trade deal will happen only when India's interests are served.
मैं आपको बार बार वादा करता हूं, मोदी के लिए आपके हित सर्वोपरि है। मेरी सरकार लघु उद्यमियों का, किसानों का, पशुपालकों का कभी भी अहित नहीं होने देंगी।
Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, who is leading the trade negotiations with the US, reiterated the stand.
National interests will always be supreme. वो ध्यान में रखते हुए अच्छा अगर डील बनती है तो भारत तो विकसित देशों के साथ डील करने के लिए कभी भी तैयार।
Not just the trade deal, New Delhi also showed the mirror to Trump when he claimed credit for the India-Pakistan ceasefire during Operation Sindoor.
At no stage in any conversation with the United States was there any linkage with trade and what was going on. There was no call between the Prime Minister and President Trump from the 22nd of April when President Trump called up to convey his sympathy.
What the U-turn by Trump administration indicates is that trade may still take time, and New Delhi evidently is not bowing to Washington's demands. With Rohit Sharma and Pranay Upadhyay, Bureau Report, India Today.
Breaking news coming in from the United States of America. The verdict on Trump tariffs has been delayed. No pronouncement today on tariffs, and the next day for pronouncement is yet to be announced. It will be announced. I quickly want to bring in Rohit Sharma once again. Rohit, do we have any more details on why no pronouncement, why the delay, and when is the next date likely to be? Rohit, unmute yourself here.
Hello. Sorry, Gaurav. So the United States Supreme Court has its argument days, opinion days, and decision days. Today, it was anticipated that the president, because the president has been talking about it, it was, speedy trial at the Supreme Court. So people anticipated that today could be a day the tariffs could be, ruling on tariffs could be announced, but Supreme Court chose not to do that. The next we are hearing is could be the 26th of January or the 20th of February when the US Supreme Court could issue a ruling on this important matter. Yes, again, all eyes will be on the Supreme Court, but that leaves us, with still wondering what the Supreme Court will decide. I mean, it's very important for President Trump, and he has been keeping a very close eye on what the Supreme Court decides and what future course of action he can take with probably going to the Congress to pass a bill.
And we'll track that story closely. I want to bring in Mr. S.C. Garg. He's former Finance Secretary and former Economic Affairs Secretary, Government of India. Joins us on the show. Jayant Krishna is former CEO and ED of Prime Minister's Skill India Mission. Raymond Vickery is a Senior Associate Chair of US India Policy Studies. Joins us on the show. Apologies for the delay. Raymond Vickery, your assessment of US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick's claim that the trade deal didn't go through because Prime Minister of India didn't call. What do you make of the contradictions in what the Commerce Secretary says and what the President said a couple of times that the Prime Minister called and words to that effect?
Well, thanks very much for having me. My take on this is that this is Howard Lutnick trying to emulate his boss, President Trump, as a transactional person who comes out on top, that anything that happens that's good was his doing, anything that happens bad was somebody else's fault, and also to try to make good TV out of it. President Trump comes from a reality TV background. He did it for 14 years, and that's his mindset. And Howard Lutnick is sort of a minor league Trump in regard to this approach. The concept that the deal didn't go through because of a phone call is absurd. There have been 8 such phone calls over the past year and plenty of opportunity to talk. But what is true, of course, is that President Trump expects his ego to be salved on this, and that he be praised as the great man who has brought order out of chaos, triumph out of delay, and that he is the one who's in charge.
Lutnick, and Mr. Garg, let me quickly bring in Mr. Garg. India is very clear. We've heard Mr. Piyush Goyal, we've heard External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar, we've heard Prime Minister Narendra Modi repeatedly on this. What part of this does the US not understand in your view, sir? What do you make of what's happening with the trade deal?
See, any trade deal happens when both the sides have it to their utmost satisfaction. It's not one-sided deal which happens anytime. So if India has certain kind of no-goes, red lines, certain issues with the trade deal, and those are not agreeable to the United States, or the United States has certain demands which India is not prepared to accept, the deal will not happen. I think it's as simple as that. Why should United States not understand India's position is for the United States to actually express. But as I see it, United States want certain things, especially on the agricultural goods, access for dairy, for corn, soybeans, and other things, which India is not prepared to do. United States want India to stop purchases of Russian oil. It may be an unfair demand, but that's what they want. So if you don't give in to that, if you don't accept that, the deal will not happen. Now,
so are we now to understand then, Mr. Jayant Krishna, and my apologies for coming to all our guests very late with so much breaking news happening, that this trade deal is now either on the back burner or clearly in the cold storage, not happening? Or will things turn around because both countries would need it, and there is no way that US gets access to Indian agriculture or dairy? That's a very sensitive issue in India.
Yeah, so absolutely, Gaurav. India has to protect the interest of our small and marginal farmers and dairy entrepreneurs, right? We can't reduce, the import duty on that to a very ridiculous limit, because it is a question of survival for the poorest of the poor people, the people at the farmers and dairy entrepreneurs at the bottom of the pyramid. So India can't do that. And India, at this stage is very, very clear. It wants the deal, but a bad deal is worse than no deal at all, right? So, yes. And India is diversifying. If the deal comes through with the US, good enough. Otherwise, India has diversified. It has a FTA with UK, with UAE, with Australia, with the European Union around the corner. Hopefully, I think, and we have to diversify our trade. That's very, very important. Laying all eggs in the American basket has not worked. And with this kind of a stubborn attitude of the US, it could go either way,
So let me bring in Raymond Vickery once again. The US Supreme Court may give a decision on whether President Trump can legally use the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, a law which is only meant for sanctions and asset freezes, to impose tariffs. Now, should the court curb this, as some reports in the US seem to indicate, could it effectively reaffirm that taxation powers cannot be exercised through emergency statutes, or will the president then use the Congress route, or does it come back to 25% after that?
Well, I think what we're likely to get out of the Supreme Court is some sort of mixed decision. I don't think that there's going to be a yes or no on this. You just take the tariffs which are on India, 25% of them are so-called Liberation Day tariffs. That stands on very shaky legal grounds in the United States and is likely to be affected. The 25% on for Russian sanction relies on entirely different legal grounds, and that is much more likely to be upheld as within the powers of the president to conduct international relations. So the delay to me is indicative of the fact that in the United States, our checks and balances, our U.S. constitutional approach is breaking down under the pressure of President Trump.
That's a story we'll be tracking very closely. Though I've run out of time on this part of the show, gentlemen, I'd love to have you back on the show in the days ahead to discuss this in greater detail. I want to thank you all for joining me here on India Today. But one thing is very clear. All accounts indicate that the Prime Minister and the government very clearly kept India first and Indian interests supreme. We'll get you more on that story. A quick break. News and updates continue on India Today. Stay with us.
Slim like a whisper, sharp in the hand, never unplanned.
Motorola Edge 70, impossibly thin.
अरे टेंशन किस बात की? सेंचुरी प्रोवुड का प्रीमियम प्लस है ना, लो एमिशन है, हाई डेंसिटी है, वाटर रेजिस्टेंट भी, टर्माइट एंड बोरो रेजिस्टेंट भी है। यानी ये है जहां नो टेंशन वहां।
प्रीमियम प्लस बाय सेंचुरी प्रोवुड।
The reason for us joining this alliance is to remove the corrupt and inefficient DMK government in Tamil Nadu. The last 5 years in Tamil Nadu has been the worst 5 years in the history of Tamil Nadu. And we have seen corruption at the peak, no safety for women and children, rampant abuse of alcohol and substance in school children and college children everywhere. Farmers are very angry and upset with this government. Agriculture has been in the negative in the last 2 years. There's no growth, negative. And unemployment is at the peak. ADMK and PMK are a natural alliance, like in the past, like we have come together on numerous times. So this alliance is going to be a mega alliance, and some more parties we expect to join this alliance.
unplanned.
Motorola Edge 70, impossibly thin.
अरे टेंशन किस बात की? सेंचुरी प्रोवुड का प्रीमियम प्लस है ना, लो एमिशन है, हाई डेंसिटी है।